is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness. And let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful, tell everyone to stand and shout loud, shout loud, shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise
Accountability
together.
starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you, exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down.
Oh, I hear us.
Okay, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I hear it, but it's not.
Oh, I hear us.
Okay, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I hear it. So I just turned the music down. But hey, guys, hold on for a second. I think I've figured something out.
I hear it. So
It's very faint. Give me 1 second.
But hey, guys, hold on for a second. I think I've figured something out.
Hold on.
It's very faint.
Hold on. System preferences.
Hold on.
Yeah, I can hear the mic now, but output.
Yeah, I can hear the mic now, but
1, 2, 3, 4. Testing. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Input. 1, 2, 3. Stay with me, guys. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing.
stay with me, guys. 1, 2, 1.
Testing. Testing. Testing.
1, 2, 3. Testing.
Yeah, it's very faint.
Testing.
Can you hear it, Diane?
Not yet. I just got distracted. What a news article. Wait a minute.
Hey, guys, can you hear? See if they can hear.
Mine is moving slow for some reason.
I apologize for the inconvenience. 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing. 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 Nope. Testing. 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 1, 2, 3. Oh, Eric Dixon is saying yes, he can hear. So, oh, wait a minute. Well, now I just did something, so I'm not sure that he can hear. But I can't. I don't know. If you can look,
That's
if
okay. Wait a minute.
No.
I'm trying to get on mine. It's moving so slow. I'm like, what is
All right.
going on?
so, okay, so they're saying that they can hear. So
They
here we
say
go.
that they can hear you, yes.
All right. So, guys, thank you for being patient. I'm not sure what we did right here and what we did wrong before. But if you can hear, then we're on, and continue to let us know, and we'll try to figure it out. Anyway. Oh, yes. And Farrakhan is saying I can hear well, too. So it's hot in the studio under these lights trying to get this going.
You need a paint.
You see me? Diane, I'm sweating up a storm. Oh. Anyway, guys.
You got that. Do you have a hoodie on too? Did I see a hoodie?
No,
Or is
not
that a different-
today. Today?
Oh, okay.
No.
right.
No.
Listen,
So, guys, welcome. Thank you guys for being patient while we figured it out. What's going on? I'm discombobulated now. What's going on, guys?
What's going on is black women wear big hats to church, so we talked about that. Big fat hats. What's going on in the news? Vincent was talking about earlier that the gentleman, the officer that has been arrested for the death, for the murder, rather, of, oh gosh, the name escapes me. Fill it in.
George.
Oh, George Floyd. Say his
George
name,
Floyd.
Diane.
Yeah.
Say his
What'd you say?
name.
I just said the name escaped me. It's so many names. I mean, pick a name.
You know
But,
what, right?
He is now. What were you saying, Vincent? You know, sometimes Vincent talks and I just don't listen. I think that's why I got distracted, and then the show wasn't going right, and then I forgot what he said. But what was it, Vincent?
You know, I have that effect on my wife and daughter, too.
I've learned the skill of tuning people out.
I talk to them, and it just sounds like this. Womp, 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 womp. Okay. But, okay, now, the officer, the lead officer with the knee on the neck, since now his position with the police department is terminated. means that in 4 years he has invested. In 4 years, he'll be eligible for his pension, which would give him $1.4 million during the course of 30 years.
So wait a minute, let me ask you a question. If you get if you get fired, you're still entitled to your pension? I thought that if you resign, I thought that police officers resigning, they resign so that they would keep their pensions intact. But you're saying that you can create an egregious act, murder in fact, right? And then you can you still benefit. I guess because you're paying into it, right? So it's just money that you put in that you now have the ability to collect.
Right. That's what they could say is, like you said, because part of the pension is not fully funded by the government and not fully funded by you. It's a partial give on both ends. What they could do is they could take back the portion that was contributed by the government and say the only money you get is what you actually contributed. Even with that, there is a system called the Victims Compensation Fund that they have in New Jersey that you have a right to go after that individual that's harmed or done injury or harm to you to get compensation.
And there's also the possibility if the survivors of Floyd decide to take a civil action against him, and that is part of his assets, they are entitled to that too.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think, or do you think it's right for him to be able to keep his pension, that it should be taken away?
Well, look, I think that as with any other civil suit, right, the people who are suing, the idea is to try to make them whole, right, to the extent that you can. You certainly can't bring a loved one back,
right.
But what you can do, what do they call it? Compensatory? No, isn't it called compensatory damages or something like that, right? Right. So they should be able to sue, and what should be on the table is any and everything that that this officer has. So if he's got a pension, that should be something that's considered as well. They should get it all. They should get it all.
So now, since that earlier that the wife has now filed for divorce, so that would mean that whoever the survivor, George Floyd's family would only be able to go after half of what.
Right.
What
so now, once you understand this, see, everybody believes the wife is filing for divorce because she doesn't want to be with him anymore. I want you to consider the fact that
for divorce to keep her assets.
It's to keep their assets, right? So by her filing for divorce, she still is entitled to half of his pension. But his pension now, the half that she's entitled to, they won't be able to come after. So he won't lose 100% of it. So this is a strategic move on the part of these two. I don't think it has anything to do with any loss of love. Yes.
The strategy gets even deeper because the divorce filing, she can actually, it has to be agreed upon or arbitrarily decided upon. Now, he can go into the simple fact of agreeing that she can get 100%.
Correct. He could offload all of his assets to her, not just the pension. Exactly. He could offload everything. And
I think, he could do that, but I think also because of the damage that was done of the murder prior to the divorce, I think it would be hard for him to be able to legally to be able to get rid of everything.
Well, what they would have to do is freeze his assets.
Right. They would have to freeze his assets. I mean, it would be the same as, I don't know, you go into a situation when somebody is sick and you saying, I want to move all the assets out of their name because they're going to go into a senior home, and they do a look back of 5 years and say, no, you can't do that. We'll give you government funding. So I think there should be something in there that they should be able to stop it or block it from happening.
There's two legal precedents. There's the Marcos ruling in which Melda Marcos was given assets because they stated that even though he was a tyrant dictator and known worldwide, her role as a wife, she had no involvement with the crimes that he did. So they allowed her to have those assets. But then you also have the Madoff ruling, where
Right.
because of his criminal right,
Lost everything.
exactly.
She lost everything. The son committed suicide. Oh, it was a hot mess over
Well,
there.
but look, can you blame him and his wife for strategizing?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't blame them for protecting themselves.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we should have the conversation and make sure it's loud enough that the George Floyd's family hears it and they go after it. Because what we don't want to do is have a conversation in a bubble and only we know or think about these things, because you can't assume that the attorneys that they're working with knows all of this stuff. So there should be a conversation, and a big conversation about, we're going to stop and block any and everything that his name has been or is attached to.
Correct. And I think that's a very good strategic move for the family of Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
Because they could...
I mean, suing the family, suing the city, they're going to get paid from the city because government always pays out on lawsuits.
Right.
And from the family, I think, yeah, absolutely, they should go. What do they say? Deep pockets. Hit everybody. Name everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Everybody. Because look at what they did to the black business people during the lynching process of the Black Wall Street. Once they lynched those black people, they came and took everything, kicked people off their properties that they had for decades, took every asset and every business that they had. So why should black people only be, the benefactor of such, laws governing restitution?
Yeah, well, not even that. Like I said before, there is a victim compensation fund in New Jersey. I don't know how it works in their state, or if it's even a plan in place to see whether or not there is a way to automatically say, well, we're going to be getting this initially anyway. So I don't know how it will work.
Well, the victim compensation in New Jersey is basically for lack of a better term, a side hustle, in which these municipalities say, okay, now that you're found guilty, you have to pay X amount of dollars to the victim compensation, which we don't see very many reports of the victims that have been compensated for your dollars.
Well, I don't know. Union County is pretty good. When they broke into my house, the kid who broke into my house is still sending me a $25 check. He probably be sending that until he's grown with kids. But yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
And Eric Dixon said they did it to OJ. Remember, they went after him. That was his whole big thing about, him running up in the hotel trying to get his trophies and stuff back, because they stripped him of everything.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Well,
that's
the question
right.
isn't, again,
And even though he wasn't found guilty,
right,
they still was able to go after him.
Right, in the civil suit. But the question isn't whether they can go after this police officer. The question is based on how the officer and his wife are colluding with one another to protect assets by filing for divorce, right? Whether or not...
Is it a collusion, or is it the fact that she's trying to save herself?
No, I don't think she's trying to save herself. I think, wait a minute. So I think she is trying to save herself in this respect, Diane. If she stays married to him and they come after all of his assets, she's broke. So she'll have a husband in jail and she'll be broke, right? So the alternative, and I'm sure this is what they said, hey, listen, he's going to jail. And he said, I'm going to jail. And she said, well, I got all this, we're highly leveraged. We got a home, we got whatever bills. If they got kids, maybe they got student loan payments and whatever they have. And if the Floyd family takes everything, then she's broke and husbandless.
Wow.
Right? So this way,
welcome to being black in America.
So this way, she can protect, and he can protect her, right? So see, this is what I'm saying. See, usually when we think of divorce, we think, oh, these two people arguing, they're fighting, and they're splitting up. Sometimes it's strategic, right? And I think that in this case, they sat down. That's why I said colluded. They sat down with each other along with the attorneys, and they said, hey, look, how do we make the best situation out of this heap of shit? And the best thing that we can do is protect her. right? And the way we protect her is by taking your assets and then moving them where they cannot be touched. And the way you do that is by divorcing. And now,
Yeah. By divorcing with an agreed upon settlement that she gets everything.
And if she gets everything, then the Floyd family can't come after her. They'll continue to come after him, but he has nothing now. So he sheltered himself. So I think that what has to happen prior to this divorce is there has to be a freezing of his assets. So he can't do anything. You can't do anything with them. And then once you do that, then they can move forward and proceed.
So do you think it's okay for her to pay for the crime that he has committed?
No, but here's the deal, right? If you're married to me and I commit a crime, and you and I have a house together, and we have other assets together, and they come after the assets, then yeah, because we're a married couple, you're in it. What they say, till death do us part, through the good and through the bad and the ugly, right? And so this is the bad and the ugly. And so as much as she was with him through the good, whatever good he may have, now she's got to be with him through the bad. And she's saying, no, I want to cut my tie. You're going, look, he's got an anvil tied to his ankles, Diana, and been thrown in the ocean. So dude is going down fast. And she's like, cut the cord. I'm not going down with you. I'm not. Yeah.
Well, is it fair for a drug dealer who buys a house and he gets caught and they seize the assets and kick his wife and family out of that house?
No, it's not fair because the white man brought the drugs into the community. We don't own no planes.
Okay, then if it's not, then the same, but it does happen.
And I consider that a business, not a hustle.
Okay. Well, part of that business and the assets of it is therefore considered forfeiture because it was done during the process of the illegal act. Now, let's look at the illegal acts that this officer has done during the course of the years and leading him up to what, an $80,000 a year salary plus benefits and pension. Yeah. Okay. Now people want to say, that poor thing and his poor wife. Look what they have been doing to black people during the process of committing a crime and everything that they have taken from them, leaving their families, destitute and homeless.
Well, Grace Sandrock said they need to sue immediately. The Floyd family was left without their family member. Leave the wife and kids broke. Let that be a constant reminder for him and his family. Leave her and those kids broke. He needs to suffer the consequences. Right, but I understand that totally, but why should the wife suffer or the kids suffer for the man that she married that he did something wrong?
But that's part of life, Diane. Listen, look, if he took his money and he invested it all in the stock market, or if he had a gambling addiction and he put the mortgage for the house or the house for sale, on the blackjack table and lost the house, the family would have to suffer. They couldn't go back and say, "Hey, listen, he can't be held responsible for his actions." No, you're tied to him, and that's why she wants to divorce him, because his actions, right, that they're currently tied to, are going to drag the entire family down. And they're trying to throw a lifeline to her, and I don't know if he has kids, but they're trying to throw a lifeline by saying, hey, listen, cut your losses with him, save yourself, save the kids, because he's going down.
Correct. So the divorce, it's not a divorce because of irreconcilable differences.
Right.
It's a divorce of convenience.
Absolutely. So do you think that the bigger conversation should be about not necessarily pension reform, but when we talk about police brutality and convictions and being held responsible, that there should be a financial tie to that, that they know that they will lose automatically, or perceive the potential to lose automatically their financial standing?
I think that there should be reform that says under these specific kinds of things, you forfeit your pension.
Now,
Like you forfeit your pension.
Now, forfeit which portion? Because we know your pension is not fully funded by you. Part of it's funded by you. Part of it's funded by the government. Which portion? Should they lose all of it, or should they lose all the and provide?
It depends. So what I'm going to say is this:
everybody is culpable in the actual act that he did.
It should be based on a crime, right? So I'm not going to say always, but certainly in murder, yes, all. If you were fired for misconduct, maybe you're losing the portion that you pay into it, right? But in terms of victim compensation, yeah, they should get everything.
So then victim compensation, you believe, should be set up that in this particular incident, when you have a law enforcement official or an elected official, by means it could be the same, have been convicted of a crime, that money that they lose in the pension then is pushed through the victim compensation fund to give to the family that they have harmed or caused harm to.
Sure. Now,
It should be part of. It should be part of the community, the cumulative assets of their civil suit against whoever is employing this person. But also, I believe that all of it should go to him, because we need to actually set a precedent for people who do racially motivated crimes.
Hello, caller.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Eric? Can no longer let these guys do this without impunity.
Right. We got a call. Caller, go.
So the guy that stuck a puncher up, Amadou Diallo, should only get a portion of his pension taken?
No, I didn't say that.
Murder?
I'm saying it should be.
Well, you said because if it's not murder,
No.
have
And I
to
said,
be
but it should be based on a crime, right? So you can have 100%, you can have 90%. You have a scale: 100%, 90%, 80%, 70%. All the way down, and then whatever. I'm not going to sit here on this show and say, so now here's the crime that should be associated with that percentage. I'm simply saying let's have a sliding scale, right? And then we can look and measure the crime, and then based on those crimes, they fit within those in that sliding scale. But I am going to say to you this: that murder, right, is certainly different than assault, right? Murder is different than a bunch of.
I don't know about that.
I don't know, because why should we base it upon the average?
There are some heinous assaults. There are some assaults that people will live through that are life altering, no matter what. Diallo, right? He's missing some organs or something, isn't he? Or are they things to fall?
Not even the fact of organs. I mean, you could an officer could commit rape, and a woman lives with that for the rest of her life.
Well, I'm not. Don't
Diallo.
Don't
Or, you know what I'm saying? Like this.
Don't start
I mean, I don't want to keep saying Diallo, but like all of that, like is in that Diallo, right? He will never be the same again.
No, and
exactly. He will outlive that reality forever.
I understand
Right?
that.
So,
I understand.
I think
that,
it's rough.
You still.
But I wanted to just throw this in. I don't know if you guys are going to talk about it, but two things. One, the Breonna Taylor law that the police are going to end up being culpable about, but that they're changing rules for now. And then the other thing is the double standard that Chris Cuomo doesn't want the Christopher Columbus statue removed. Because he says it's okay to remove statues of other people, and it's okay to remove what's that flag, the Confederate flag. All of that he's okay with. The little Italian guy who got lost started the whole damn thing. Nah, we're gonna leave him.
Well, the reason he doesn't want the Christopher Columbus removed is because Cuomo's Italian. But the other aspect is that he has to understand that Christopher Columbus was a slave trader.
Well, you say he has to
He
understand
understands
it.
it.
He knows it. I mean,
He ain't confused.
So we look. It's all about people's interests, right? And folks fight for their interests. I'm not mad at him. I'm saying we need to be fighting for our interests. See, I'm done. I'm done with pointing at somebody else, right, and talking about what they should do. when we're not doing the things that we should do. If we do the things that we should be doing, I think that we'll be fine. So let him advocate for the Christopher Columbus statue. We should be advocating, and I think you said it, Farrakhan, put our statues up, right? If you look at the museum in Alabama and you see those statues, those bronze statues that they have outside that museum, I mean, they are jaw-dropping, right? In terms of their imagery and their impact. Yeah, we should put, and I agree with you, Farrakhan, let's go put one of those next to the Christopher Columbus statue, right? Or let's go put next to the Christopher Columbus statue folks who died of smallpox. Or, let's associate, let's have some imagery next to him that puts in context who he was. Let's do that. So let's not leave it. We ain't got no problem leaving the Christopher Columbus statue.
No, nor do I. But I only bring it up as to say the black folk now see who he is. Don't get confused where his true position.
Loyalty lies.
We miss that in all. Like I said, and I've said it since the very beginning. I don't care what anybody wants to say about Cuomo. When they start talking that Cuomo for president because of how we handled now he wants to take stop the police from chokehold. But guess what? He was the governor 4 years ago when everybody got the chokehold and didn't do. And the only reason he's doing it now is to teach black folks that we don't burn stuff up. I keep trying to explain to people that all of this reaction has nothing to do with how government feels about what is done and has been done to black Americans. These governments are doing these actions because they don't want it destroyed. And there is a difference.
Listen.
Because in all reality, none of this, chokeholds have nothing to do with George Floyd's death. Everybody is going on, we need to stop chokeholds. Because they believe that saying that helps stop us from doing things.
Well, and I agree with you because police officers have been doing this chokehold for decades, and they've been talking about it being illegal, but they've never done anything about it. And I believe a lot of these politicians right now had an opportunity to make these changes 20 years ago. Yet now that there is a movement, they want to be on the right side or the popular side of history.
No.
Okay, and can I just say one more thing about it?
Listen.
All right, and I just want everybody to understand something. Right, but you have to look at these officers' face. You can't just ask the question over the internet.
Farrakhan,
Farrakhan,
your mic is breaking up.
Oh, okay. How about now? Can you hear me?
A little bit better.
Okay. The thing that we all need to ask a police officer, if you can no longer subdue a person with a chokehold, you can't kick them, you can't punch them, you can't hit them with the baton anymore. Right? If you cannot do these things, how are you going to subdue or get someone under control that is non-compliant?
Wait a minute, I'll tell you. Biden says shoot him in the leg.
The answer is going to be to shoot him.
Biden says shoot him in the leg.
That's all you can do.
Biden says shoot him in the leg, maim him, don't kill him.
Yeah,
right, that's what I'm saying. And we've already been shooting in the legs to be wrong. That's why shooting was only supposed to be at before. They already seen it.
So, listen.
No, see, the whole thing is this.
So listen, here
the
we are,
police
guys.
training is
Let
this.
us be very, very clear about what's happening right now. And I posted this before. We are in an abuse. We have been, and we currently are in an abusive relationship with this nation and with both political parties. They are the abuser. We are the abused. That is it. And what happens when you're in an abusive relationship and that abuser starts to push you to the point where you say, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. And that's kind of what you see, I guess, in some of these rallies and protests that folks are saying we should leave, by means of tearing it down, right? We should be done with the system. And so what the abuser does to keep the abused from leaving is they begin to flatter them. Right? And the flattering is a distraction from the pain and suffering and torment that you've been experiencing. I mean, go check any abusive relationship, right? All of a sudden, the abuser sees, oh man, they may be serious.
Oh, honey, I'm sorry.
Are you saying Black America just got the vote?
Yeah.
These aren't even roses. Farrakhan, these are not even roses, bro. You understand what I'm saying? Roses would be if they sat down and began putting together, not with the full intent of doing it, but at least giving the impression that they were moving toward reparations. See, that would be roses, right? See, what they're giving now, I don't even know, like stinky.
No, I think that Farrakhan is right. Hello?
I thought you were going to make a statement. Right about what?
Well, Farrakhan is right. Black America right now is getting roses. Because right now, the only thing what's happening is Black America is just basically taking the I'm sorry, I'll never do it again, honey, it's all my fault, it was this, it was that. Yeah. And see, we have to stop. And this is what happens with every protest. We take what they give them instead of demanding what we need to survive.
Right. So look, and I posted the picture. I'm sure you guys saw it. All the Democrats with the fake kente cloth scarves around their necks or whatever those things were, taking a knee, right? I said this is the most disgusting thing in the world. And the reason I'm going to say it is this. See, when Kaepernick took a knee, none of those people, and they're still not talking about him. So let us be clear. Right? They're not talking, because I would want to ask every single one, and what do you think about Cap?
I think he needs a job back.
And then once they answer that question, I would ask them, well, why weren't you vocal then? You see, because it wasn't about black folks leaving. It wasn't about the abused leaving the relationship. It was about that one guy that everybody thought, you know what, we'll just demonize him, we'll radicalize him, and we'll dismiss him. Now, because you have this movement of millions of people who are saying we're fed up, they're saying, you know what, we got to do something. We got to go to get a Hallmark card, and we got to get some flowers and get some stale chocolates, and we got to do whatever we can to keep them from leaving. Yeah, but that's where we are right now.
Hey, Eric, I think you said it great. On your Facebook post, when you said are we falling for the kente cloth in the tail, right? Yeah. That's what it is, right?
Yeah, man.
That's exactly where we're at, right? Beat up fell for the kente cloth in the tail type again.
But then look, we have said this over and over again. They have nothing for black Americans. Nothing. They don't want it. They're not going to give it to you. And if you're not going to fight for it, then you ain't going to get it. But they have nothing but platitudes. Nothing. And that's why I call them the Congressional Black Caucus, because they got nothing either. Except for themselves. They got their jobs and they got their, little contracts that they could dole out to, family and friends. So they got that kind of stuff. But they're not fighting for you. Nobody is fighting for black America. Nobody.
So Mark Duncan says most abusers are narcissists who use manipulation and gaslighting tactics to fool you into thinking that you have control, when in actuality they are fighting to maintain that very control.
Now tell me that wait a minute, say that one more time.
That's right.
Wait, say it, Diane, I want you to read that again, but guys, when she reads it, I want you to see, you've been conditioned to believe that this is a Republican thing. And what I'm trying to explain to you is it's an America thing. It's who America is. It's its DNA. It's in the DNA. So Diane, read that one more time.
Mark Duncan says,
Abuses are narcissists.
Go ahead, Vincent. Go ahead, Vincent.
No, I was just remembering what you said.
Most abusers are narcissists. You hear that, Vincent? Most abusers are narcissists who use manipulation and gaslighting tactics to fool you into thinking that you have control, when in actuality they are fighting to maintain that very control.
Right. So now let me break this down. So now when they put Al Charlatan in the front line, what they're saying to you is this: see, black people, you have some control. You have a voice. So when they put these other black folks up there, these Negro whisperers and slave catchers that we've been talking about, they're giving you the illusion that you have some control, that you have a voice. I want you to understand that. But you have no control and you have no voice, and they have no prescription right now for what is killing, not what's ailing, but what is killing black Americans.
So I have a question, Eric. So yesterday on Facebook, Hillside Forum, there was one of the elders of the community put up an article about the mayor and stated that she was a disgrace as a black woman, a bad representation. She just went on and on and on about this. At what point do we say that it's wrong for us to criticize them publicly like that? Or do we hold them to the fire because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is protecting the community?
Well, look, I think that this whole notion that we shouldn't air our laundry, right? I don't agree with it. I think that if it's a public official, then we should take them to the woodshed and rip them a new one and whatever it is that we need to do, and then we need to replace them. See, I'm gonna talk about abusive relationships again. Think about the uncle, right? The dirty old uncle who was molesting the little niece, right? And people in the family knew about it. Some people suspected it, but nobody wanted to talk about it. And so that little girl, she suffered at the hands of that nasty ass man, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? So no, you got to talk about it. You got to put it out there. And so I think that we need to have these open and honest conversations about who these dirty, nasty ass politicians are in our community who are wreaking havoc on black Americans, and then we need to take them to the woodshed, and then we need to dispense of them.
Okay, so
I think that.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Now you have the issue in Clark, where the mayor came out at a rally and said he supports and he likes good black people. And they kind of threw him under the bus, and I reposted it on my page. And then our former mayor from Hillside, Joe Menza, who I believe is Italian, I'm not quite sure, said that he personally knows him and he knows him not to be a racist. And that maybe what he said he took out of context. And my thing is, do we really take stuff out of context, or do we really just speak from our heart?
So
what we really mean?
So firstly, I
Jesus said from the filth comes from the heart.
Can we be honest? He was telling the truth. Do you support bad black people? Is anybody on this show right now in this conversation?
Oh, that's
bad black people.
No, but
I don't support good black people.
Does he not? Does he support bad white people? You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, right now that becomes no question. Like, listen, but I think it's a stupid way to express it. But I mean, anybody taking it out of context, you gotta understand it. What he's saying is this: if you're doing right, I'm good. If you're doing wrong, I'm not. I don't think that's a bad thing. Maybe by putting race in the statement is where the problem is, right? Maybe you should. I support good. I don't care if it's black or white.
There are a couple
whatever.
things,
Farrakhan.
I think there are a couple things with this particular mayor, and yeah, context matters, right? So you got to understand Clark, New Jersey. Clark, New Jersey is one of the most racist towns, right? Not just the town, but the municipality. And I used to live in Westfield, right on Central Avenue. So when you get off that exit 135 and you drive down Central Avenue, I live maybe a mile past the Clark border. I can't tell you the number of times I would be stopped from the moment they would sit right there when you get off the 135 exit, and then going down Central Avenue. And when I lived there was at that point no black folks at all working in Clark City Hall. There were I think one or two who were employed by the entire municipality. There were no black police officers on the police force. So that was a
Hey, Eric.
Let me finish.
I got my first ticket. I got my first driving ticket in Clark.
Right.
So I know what you mean.
Right. So what I'm saying is this. So when you take that guy who's the mayor of that town that has that reputation, and then he says this, you keep it in context. So I'm looking at it in context. I'm saying here's a guy who grew up, who's part of that. So when we talk about DNA, right, what is his makeup? See, because and I'll say this, because was he pushing against all of those things that I said? Was he looking for more inclusion of black Americans in the municipality? Was he actively working to recruit more black Americans to have a diverse police force? Was he really looking at the numbers of blacks that were stopped coming through, getting off the Parkway, coming through Clark to go somewhere else? Was he doing those things? Because I doubt that he was doing those things. So I'm saying this is who this guy was. And so
I
now
think we can all unanimously say the answer to your question is hell no.
Right. So now I connect that inaction, and I won't even say it was an inaction, right? Maybe it was an active action to keep it an all-white force, an active action to keep the municipal employees all white, an active action to keep that culture there. And so now here he is.
So it was an active action to keep it great.
And then brewing in that culture, and then he blurts this out.
All right. And sometimes people in those little Freudian slips show their true character.
Yeah.
Like when you like all over social media, you get these white people posting, "Well, all lives matter." Really? Okay. So when has your child ever been pulled over and his life was in danger?
Yeah.
So now you go on to Breonna Taylor in Louisville. And at Louisville, thank you. And they're in that process of creating an ordinance so that the no knock law is removed. But what they're saying is they use it at a very minimum time, and that they only use it when they think that an officer entering in a building is going to be putting them at risk for their life.
Now let's rehash this so people know. She's the young lady who was murdered in her boyfriend's apartment because the police were looking for somebody who apparently they had already had in custody, and they had a no-knock warrant, right? But they said they knocked, but the neighbor said that they didn't hear them knock and identify themselves. This gentleman, her boyfriend, had a license to have a firearm. When he heard people in his apartment who did not identify themselves according to witnesses, he began to open fire, as he should have.
Well,
now the officers, I'm sorry?
We have to look at
let me finish before you interrupt.
Okay,
let me
go ahead.
finish what I'm saying. So then the officers are now saying, in order to protect themselves, that they identify themselves. See, because if the officers didn't identify themselves, then they could certainly just be considered to be burglars, right? And he should be shooting to protect his safety, the safety of her and his property. So they have to now lie, and they have to collude, and they have to say that even though it was a no-knock warrant, they knocked and they identified themselves.
So let me give you the background of what they say. But the no-knock search warrants are rare in their experience, and they've had for good purpose. 99% of the time, officers are required to knock and announce their presence and give occupants a reasonable time to respond before entering a home with a search warrant. However, in situations where officers have information to believe that knocking and announcing will create a dangerous situation for the officers, they can ask for a no-knock search warrant. In that warrant, they have to swear to the information that they rely relayed to the issuing judge that the occupants are armed and at risk to the officer's safety. For example, the occupants are likely armed and may fire upon the officers if given notice of their entry. Again, they state that these warrants in this particular town are rare, at least in this district.
And that's not altogether true. See, in terms of the police procedure and customs, a warrant is issued by, of course, them knocking, them coming to the door and saying, okay, we have a warrant to search your premise. Now, for a no-knock warrant basically means that they now take a battering ram, bang it through there. Once they're in there, they have to announce who they are. Now, this woman is an EMT, a worker for the city. Okay, her boyfriend is, of course, of great, standards to the community because he's allowed a permit to carry a firearm. So, and how they get the no-knock warrant is it's like an indictment. It doesn't stand the prosecution. They just basically can go to the judge and say anything they want. We may fear for our lives and our safety, so we need to not knock to capture this person, and it's illegal. If anything, that a judge is going to make decisions. The judge
they weren't even looking for a person. They didn't even know what they were looking for. They'd never been in the house. Their only investigation was for another person who they believe frequented that house and that they might either have drugs or money in. But they actually had no knowledge of it.
But this goes to the lie of them telling the judge. See, they didn't research that person that they had the warrant for, or they would have found out he was already in custody.
Don't yell. Don't yell.
Oh, they would have found. They would have found out that he's
right. But here's the question that I have: if you're going to, so one, I understand, and I see we have Cesare, and he said not true. So Cesare Adams is an officer in the city of Newark. But what I do agree with is if the police officers are going to serve or going to arrest somebody who they consider to be dangerous, and they have to go knock on the door and they have to announce themselves from the outside of the door, they are putting themselves at enormous risk because they've now indicated to the people who are inside, who may be heavily armed, that they're there, right? So I get that. And so if you do have a no-knock warrant, the question that I have is this: if you're getting ready to invade the wrong house, right, which is what happened here, where does the fault lie? And that is just a real simple question for me. If you're going into the wrong house, if you made a mistake, because they did, they went into the wrong house.
No, they didn't make a mistake. They didn't go into the wrong house. They went into the house they were intending on going.
No.
They were going to that house because they believed
Farrakhan, I understand that. But Farrakhan, it wound up being the wrong house, meaning that the guy that they were looking for had already been arrested, right? And so
no, they had already arrested him somewhere else. See, that's what you guys are not understanding. The reason the other guy was arrested is they were running down on this organization. They locked him up at one organization. They were going to where they believed his stash house or his money was.
No, I understand.
You understand?
I understand that.
So they were going to lock him up regardless. So they were going to this house not to arrest.
Let me ask you a question. Right? I don't want to debate.
They were going to this house to search.
Here's the question I want to ask: the house that they went to, right? Even though that was the house that they got the warrant for, right? So yes, technically it was a right house based on them. This is the warrant. This is the address. Was it the house that they? Was it the house? Did they find anything there?
No, they didn't. And so the carte blanche of the judge giving them carte blanche to go to anywhere, it's the judge's fault.
That, and
that's the purpose of that.
Right, so that's what
I'm saying. The answer to what your statement was, it's the judge's fault because the judge is the guy that's supposed to say, this is thin or is it?
Right.
And he didn't do that.
Correct. And that's why I said that the no-knock law should be, the no-knock ruling should be outlawed. Because it's based upon the information that's fed, and that information is always one-sided.
It should be outlawed, but I think that it should be carefully reviewed, right? So you can't say that this gentleman who was in his home and had the right to have a firearm, that he shouldn't have been able to protect himself.
He should.
Right, he should. And
That's the reason he has the firearm.
Right.
And at 2 o'clock in the morning,
that might be the reason they went for the no-knock warrant. Because they may have already known that there was a gun registered to that house.
Oh, I don't
Then
know.
they also know who the gun is registered to.
All right, hold on,
Right,
guys. Let's
so
see if I can
that's
take
my
this.
stuff.
Let's see if I can take this call.
But who the gun is registered to was not the person that they had on the warrant.
Hello, did I bring another call in? They may have hung up.
Bitch, I don't think they didn't have anybody registered on the warrant. They had the guy. Yeah, they did. It was a suit. It was for a suit. They weren't intending on docket arresting a specific person at that location. They didn't know who was going to get it. They figured that there would be drugs and money.
No, they had a specific person in mind who was supposed to be the drug dealer or content.
Who was that
The
person?
one who was the guy who was already incarcerated.
He wasn't already incarcerated. They had already locked him up.
Hold
They
one
were
second,
going
guys.
to where they.
Hello, caller?
Hello?
Yeah.
Did you hear me? Yes, this is Cesare.
The same police unit
Yep.
had him
1
already
second.
in custody.
Hey, guys, I got
Hold on.
I got Cesare Adams, officer, Newark police officer on the line. What's up, Cesare? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. How you doing, Miss Diane? How everybody doing?
Hey, can you give us a little background on how, I don't know if it works across the board everywhere, but how no-knock warrants actually work?
Okay, a no-knock warrant works like any warrant when it's being issued by the courts. You have to have substantial evidence to support what it is that you're trying to do. So let's go for a no-knock warrant, for instance. A judge is just not going to present you a no-knock warrant because you're going in there saying, I need a no-knock warrant. You have to have substantial evidence supporting the fact that you need a no-knock warrant based off evidence that you present. For instance, you can, let's just say, I'm just going to use the Bloods, for instance. You've been surveilling the top dog of the Blood gang for a month, and you see that he's been wheeling and dealing drugs, he's been involved in multiple murders, he's been known to carry guns, he's been known to have soldiers around him who carry guns, such as AK-47s, this is the 7/3, and you see that at the particular house that you're asking to do a no-knock warrant at, this is where all this mayhem goes down as far as where the guns at and the drugs at, and this is the 7/3. So you present that to a judge by saying, based off of this evidence, I believe that we should have a no-knock order because it will cause damage, it will cause harm to the officers that are trying to arrest X, Y, and Z because of this that I just presented before you. You just can't go in there and say, oh, this is a dangerous man, so I want to have a no-knock order. Because at the end of the day, people still have rights. So I understand how we feel about the Breonna Taylor situation because I believe that situation it was totally wrong. But at the same time, I can attest because it has happened in the state of New Jersey and the city of New York as well, where information, even within the department, comes back slow. The information that needs to be shared amongst one another, when it comes to, let's say, detective bureau compared to a precinct or correctional facilities, or NARC or undercover or sheriff, information is not shared in real time. So I'm not giving the police officers any leeway for the fact that for what they did, but I am trying to explain that we may assume that information is shared in real time and on time, but in most cases, and I'm a witness of this, it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. And but I can say this though. I am going to fault the officers for this because when a situation like this should be cross-referenced not once, not twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. It's still a chain of command when it leaves the officer's hand to the sergeant, to the lieutenant, to the captain that is over this particular unit. So at the same time, even though I am saying what I'm saying, I'm also blaming the officers and the commanding officers over this unit because it should have been thoroughly checked more than once. And the prosecutors have to be held accountable for this, and the judge has to be held accountable for this as well, because everybody should have made sure that the information that was being given was correct.
That's the part that I was saying. It does not stand. It does not stand the process of prosecution or verification if, as you said, that there's a real time incident in a lot of cases. That's why it makes that no-knock warrant extremely liable.
Well, but you said it should be illegal, and I'm saying that I don't think that it should be illegal. Right. So
it shouldn't be illegal. I say it shouldn't be illegal because there are instances where there are situations where you have to basically kick the door down. And yes, when you're kicking the door down, you still have to announce your stuff. But there are situations where you can't, when you are put in situations to where you can't knock on the door and try to apprehend somebody who may be a top drug lord of the Bloods or the Crips or Latin Kings or whatever game that you want to put out. There are situations where you just cannot knock.
Let me ask you a question, guys.
Those situations usually involve imminent danger,
right,
correct?
I got a question. Do we know whether or not the body cameras for these officers, if they were operational?
Well, some no body cameras. There were no body cameras with the particular unit. Yeah. So there were no departments. It's an undercover unit. They don't use them. Yeah. Yeah, some require body cameras and some departments don't require body cameras. Most departments around the United States don't require body cameras when it comes to undercover units. The majority of them do not.
So, Tesray, I have a question. You know, all of this stuff that's going on in our communities across the country now, do you think that having people that look like us, that live in our community, would be better law enforcement officers than people that are allowed to live in other communities and just come in and work here?
One thing that stuck with me in the academy has never reigned untrue to this day. I had a training officer who told me in the academy, if you were a punk before you put on that uniform, you're going to be a bigger punk. If you were a bully before you put in that bigger uniform, you're going to be an even bigger bully when you put in that uniform because you're going to feel like you're invincible. I do think exactly people when you have people who look like you, who understand the circumstance like you, represent your community as far as law enforcement is concerned, it does help. But let's not be fooled. That just because they look like us doesn't mean they're for us. Because there are still people who look like us on all levels in society, who look like us and still are kicking us in the back. And I think what we need to understand is, and this is one of the reasons why politicians are getting me so upset at this very moment. We have the likes of Maxine Waters, who's been in office for 33 years, Joe Biden, who's been in office for over 40 years. You had people like Rangel from New York and all these congressional caucus members who's been around since the 70s. You've had an opportunity to change law. It's one thing to reform. You can reform police departments all you want. You can turn Irvington, the city of Newark, East Orange, any other urban community, Chicago, all black, all you want to. But the laws still remain the same. The laws still are on the books. So until we change these laws that have systematically disenfranchised and have harmed our communities for hundreds of years, all we're doing is passing the baton to the next person to still violate our rights generation after generation after generation after generation.
And so, listen, I'm looking at what Eric Dixon puts in a thread, and it was something that was on my mind, Cesare. So you said that undercover police officers, some do, some don't, wear body cameras. What we have found, right, the Black American community has, for decades and longer, talked about this violence that has occurred between it and the police department, and it had been denied, and now we see evidence of it through video cameras, right? And, you know, I think Will Smith's quote has been going all over social media that, you know, this has always been around, it's just being recorded now. That was a paraphrase of what his quote is. And so now, since we know that the recordings at the very least bring a little bit more accountability to it, why do you believe there's still some departments that say, well, you know what, we got all that evidence that recordings, can curtail it, or at least provide evidence, to be able to deal with it, but we're not gonna require recordings here?
Because the elected officials who appoint those police chiefs don't make it a requirement.
Well, the reason just about, if I could.
No. I was asking a question to Cesare.
The question was to Cesare, so can we let Cesare come in with it? Mm-hmm. Okay, so again, it's like Ms. Diane said, it all falls on our elected officials, who are electing these directors, and some departments call them chiefs, who are putting these people in positions of power. Also, I don't know. I've sat in rooms, here and there, but I don't sit in these rooms all the time. I think they don't record, undercover don't record incidents, because I personally feel like they're going to use what they're using right now. They feel like it's going to be a danger to X, Y, Z, and I think it's bullcrap. Because at the end of the day, I always tell people, me as a law enforcement officer, a body cam is going to save my life. Period, point blank. Because when you have situations like this, a body camera can make or break you. But we also have to understand that people like the mayors and the city councils who are running these departments, who have the power to hire and fire and call in directors and chiefs to say, look, I want to look at your policies, and we're going to revise these policies if they're not for the community. They're not doing that. They're not doing that, because a lot of people, the first thing they yelled at when it came to Minneapolis was, and I'm kind of going off top of the body cams, was, we need to charge them with first-degree murder. But nobody understood that in Minneapolis policy, their specific police policy, that officer having his neck on George Floyd's neck was illegal according to their police policy. And you have to understand, it never specified how long he can have his knee on his neck, or anything. It just says he's allowed to have his knee on his neck. That is a policy on that police department. So we have to understand, when these politicians are out here crying that they're all Black Lives Matter and I'm for the people and blah, blah, it's all bullcrap. Because every one of them, the stuff that we're screaming for, they have the power to change it. With the Cesare, can I please? I've been waiting for a long time to get this question out, because this goes to what Eric asked. Now, he asked whether or not, I forgot how he asked now. The point is, aren't police unions probably the number one reason there aren't mandatory body cameras on all officers? Because they don't want it, and they support the politicians. Now, you can talk about.
Well, let me ask you a question. You asked him a question.
We're always talking about that money. Let me tell you something. I understand we scream that police unions are powerful. They are. Do not get me wrong. Police unions are very powerful across this country. But at the end of the day, you're the person who's running. If I'm a mayor, I'm running the department. Whether you like what I'm doing or not, I'm the one who gives the order. I'm the one who signs the dotted line that says this is going to change, and it will change whether you like it or not. Let's understand, the police union, I'm just going to use, no police union in an urban city has supported the mayor. That's standing in these cities right now, in the urban cities, especially in Jersey. The police union would not support the mayors that are in office right now in the urban community in Jersey.
That's so
why does it matter what they're saying if they didn't support you anyway? It's all a political ploy. Seriously? Are you saying that the police union?
No. Wait.
That's not what I said. What I said was, if all these black mayors in the state of New Jersey was not supported by any police union in the state of New Jersey when it comes to urban communities, why does it matter what they're saying to you? You still have the power to write on that dotted line and sign it and say, I'm abolishing it, or I'm going to require this, or I'm going to require that. It's passing it to me. my question is passing the buck, because I know in a lot of urban communities we have a strong mayor, strong city council. So it's no excuse to me on why you have to wait for situations like George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor for all of a sudden for all these fake Pentecost wannabe Black Power people to come out and say we're all of a sudden going to defund the police, change laws, change policies, do this, when you could have done it the whole time.
Go ahead, Vincent. You had a question?
All right. Now, here's the big question, or actually the big statement. Well, first,
Is
there
it
were
a
three of
statement
them,
or a
but let's go
question?
hold up. The most immediate is this, and understanding this. Yes, the unions are all powerful because they sit on top of a great deal of union due money, and they get their power by backing these politicians who are supporting their policies and allowing them to actually do it. That's one of the biggest reasons why all police officers don't have body cams, because they know that they're backing up their friends that they know are doing stuff wrong. But the question I have for you
Vincent,
is
don't
this.
yell. Don't yell.
Okay, the
We're
question
having
I
a
have for you is
conversation,
this.
Vincent.
Do not a great deal of the police officers know the police officers who are trouble to the community?
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows. But my thing is, if I'm somebody who's been on the job maybe 1 to 5 years, if you're new on the job, just fresh out the academy, you're on the job, you're not going to know up front. But the more you start working with certain individuals, the more you start keeping your eyes and your ears open and being present to certain things, you start to see little by little who's bad and who's good. Now, there are some people who really don't give a darn, and they honestly they're coming here, do they 8 hours or 12 hours or 16 hours or however the specific department mandates them to work, and they go home. Some people honestly they have tunnel vision. They're there to do what they got to do, and they're going home. Some people pay attention, and they see, and some people pay attention and just don't care, and at the end of the day, they're just not going to say nothing. So it varies. It really does. But everybody know who's bad out there. Everybody know if it's 1 or 2 people on the job, eventually they can say, oh, just cover the people crap.
So basically it boils down that the elected official, the mayor or the council, or is who actually sets the atmosphere of the police department and the community. And it's the residents that have to stay on top of them to make them do what we want them to do. Because the police officers are only going to do what they're allowed to do because their elected officials are telling them it's okay. We're not going to push back, not a problem.
So once again,
that's why and that's why even when I'm out here protesting with people and I held my own rallies, I'm telling people I'm for everybody. I'm for my community, but we also we're pointing fingers at police, and I point the fingers at them too, because I just think policies and laws across the board when it comes to law enforcement is just absolutely wrong and need to change. But we also need to point the fingers at those who have the power, especially locally, who have
to
the
make the
power
change.
To make the change just within the department as a whole. And I want people to go out and say to their municipal council, to their mayor, when was the last time you asked the chief or the director of your department to bring their law enforcement policies to the table, and we actually sat down and reviewed page by page every single policy?
But you know what's
I know for me.
Never. But you know, Cesare, what's funny is when it's time to renegotiate those contracts, the police officers got stacks and stacks of paper and how they need this budget and they need this money. I've seen it. I've had the conversations. But you're right. The people won't look into the policy changing because that's where the problem starts. If the laws are changed, we won't have all of these problems because they won't be able to do it.
Correct.
Now, don't get me wrong. I understand. No. But sometimes you have to go hand to hand combat. It happens. You are going to get your hands dirty on this job. But as a human being, some point you got to tell yourself, when is enough is enough. When am I going to consciously say to myself, okay, I'm going too far and stop? That's the problem. These officers don't. They just don't care sometimes.
And you're right. The big problem that they deal with is their level of hypervigilance. Right. And it does have to be controlled. That's why they one of the big reasons in terms of policy, they're supposed to have additional officers in there and a sergeant or a supervisor on the scene to actually keep everybody at a point where they can de-escalate.
Right. What were we going to say, Farrakhan?
Cesare, can I ask you a question? Because I posed it earlier, and you're on, so I'm just going to ask you. Without being able to kick, punch, or use a chokehold to subdue somebody who's non-compliant, how do you do it as a police officer? How do you get a guy who's 6'4" and 100 pounds more than you to sit down and let you put the cuffs on him when he's telling you no? If you can't, any of those forms.
Well, that's the question, and that's why in the comment I said we're walking a dangerous line when it comes to that. Because now they're even to the point where you have some cities who are trying to outlaw the fact of using mechanical force when it comes to even using O2 spray against people. So me personally, I'm 5'10" and I'm 165 pounds soaking wet. There's no way.
You are not a threat to a lot of the people you have to apprehend.
Exactly. I am not a threat to a lot of people that I have to apprehend. Most of them that I'm dealing with, they're not my size. They are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 230 pounds or maybe more. Sometimes they are on the heavy side, and sometimes they just that way because of muscle. My thing is, what do you need to do to make sure that these people are in compliance, or I'm able to apprehend this person or person, so I'm able to not only make sure they're safe, but I'm safe, and I can safely put them in the back of a car. That's why I say we're kind of walking a dangerous line.
I know this might be much for you to have to say, and if you can't speak for it, but would it be honest to say that this will probably produce more police shooting?
Oh yeah,
such a restriction.
I said it in the thread. I said what's going to happen is going to be two things. Either A, officers are going to say, well, I can't do nothing. You know, took the fact that I can go hand-to-hand combat people to a certain extent. You're basically almost saying you're outlawing mechanical force. It's either I'm not going to do nothing and say, hell, I don't care what nobody does, or it's going to be the fact that they're going to wind up shooting. And you already, we already heard what Joe Biden said, shoot him in the leg.
But it's also true that officers of your stature or smaller, the first thing that in the event of a conflict, the first thing that happens is that they do go for some weapon, either mace, taser, or gun, or billy club.
Mm-hmm.
So that's true. And one of the things that we worked out with the city of Camden before it gets to that point is when I was in the academy in the Army, they told us that the most powerful weapon that you have, the most powerful weapon that you have is your mind. And the ability to talk somebody down or to de-escalate them without it going bad is one of the biggest things that keeps you between life and death. And correct me if I'm wrong, the greatest goal of every police officer is to get home at the end of his shift.
Yeah. That's the goal of everyone. I'm not going to lie. My goal is, when I put on that uniform, is to protect, to serve my community that I swim over to, and to make sure I get home safely, because there are those at home who care about me, whether in the community or at home.
Right.
But
So
we also have to understand there are situations where let's look at the situation. I think the situation happened in, I believe, Addison just recently, where a white man was walking around wielding a gun. Wielding a gun just freely, right here in our own state.
Yeah, that was crazy.
How much is too long or too much of saying we're going to have a conversation to try to make this person put their gun down? Because to me personally, I've told individuals when I looked at that video, I'm going to give you one time, maybe twice, to put that gun down, and I'm going to shoot you. Because I have to not only think about my life, but the officers that surround me and the people that were outside recording.
Right.
Nobody knows what that young,
what's in his mindset.
What was in his mindset? What he would have done. He could have got that gun and just started shooting everybody that was out there, even though they were recording. So that's why I say sometimes we are kind of walking a thin line a little bit with certain situations.
Right.
Because I can
Definitely. I have a last question, Cesare. Do you think that community, what do they call them, policing advisory boards are useful? And if so, what do you think that they should entail? Who should be on those committees for the community boards to oversee police departments, advisory boards?
Like the citizen review board?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think I'm for a civilian review, but when it comes to civilians making complaints towards police officers, I'm for a civilian review board viewing those specific things. Now, people need to understand. I think this is where police officers are getting things confused. Police officers are thinking that when it comes to the departmental violations, that they're trying to get the power of civilians to review X, Y, and Z. No, what they're saying is when it comes to civilian complaints, such as police brutality and use of force, and this and the third, that a civilian review board should have the authority to review such complaints and make a judgment on what they believe the officer should have as far as punishment is concerned, and then the department either take into advisement what the civilian review board is saying, or they don't. But this community needs to be involved. Now, the problem I have with that is that 9 times out of 10 we know how government works. If I'm the person who's running a city as a mayor, 9 times out of 10, who I'm going to put on these boards? People that I know. People who I know are going to be for leadership. That instead of saying, let me get people, whether they're on the police department or not, who are really in this to create change, and they don't have a hidden agenda to say, I hate the police, so no matter what they do, I'm out to just get them no matter what. I think when it comes to, we have to, I don't know how the process is going to work, because
but you know what? So it's going to be challenging to make it work, right? Because look, you would have to have an organization of some sort make some recommendation about who sits on that board. But what we have are all the organizations within the Black Americans community. They're all on the dole. Whether you talk about the Urban League, you talk about the NAACP, talk about IYO, talk about the NORC, but to go throughout the country and look at those different organizations. Because if those organizations were not on the dole, they would be pushing back and fighting hard, not just during this time of George Floyd's murder, right? So they're all in it together. And so you would have the elected official go to whatever organization they're most in the pocket of and say, hey, you go ahead and recommend some people, because then it'll look good on paper that the NAACP made the recommendations. Right? So I don't know.
That's why I said it's going to be for the civilian review, but that's why I said it's going to be so tricky and so hard when it comes to appointing people on these particular boards, because, like you said, everybody has their hand in the basket.
Everybody has their hand in
what organization it is.
And so Darren Martin.
To say that,
Darren Martin is saying in the feed, and I agree with him. Look, one of the ways that we start to deal with this is that we have this national registry, right? Because all we're talking about doing is how to reform the police department, right? Or, how to change the culture of the police department. And I think a big part of it, Cesare, is having this national registry that says, look, if you've got all of these complaints against you, somebody should be able to see them. But in Chicago, for instance, the union negotiated that after a certain number of years, all of those complaints get wiped away. And other municipalities too. The union said, hey, look, we want those things wiped off the books after a little while. But why would you ever want that information removed when it could be helpful in letting people know the mindset and the actions of a particular officer toward the community?
Because they call them the Fraternal Order of Police for that particular reason. They're looking after their brothers.
So I'll give you.
Well, not only that, but we also have to understand that we're also in a world to where people do make faulty complaints as well. We have to understand this. So my question, and I'm not defending police at all. I'm just, because I just been around. I've seen certain things. So if somebody, let's say somebody makes a complaint about because you got to think, some people make complaints towards officers because they don't like the fact that they was given a ticket. That's considered a civilian complaint. So my thing is, if you have 10 people who goes, I'm just going to use me for an example, who goes in and makes a complaint about me because I gave them a ticket. What is it going to say about that? I did my job, I did it correctly, but 10 different people made a complaint about me because of the fact that I gave them a ticket. So how do we work that out and maneuver do that?
Hold that thought. Oh, the person hung up. Please call back whoever you were.
There's a huge difference in someone making a complaint about you giving them a ticket and someone making a complaint about you kicking their teeth in.
Well, I don't know if there's a difference. I mean, because of social media and cameras, people complain and people have an opinion about everything. Depending on how you view it and perceive it is how you may respond to it. So I totally understand what Chesler is talking about. Like when it comes to parking tickets, nobody wants to get a parking ticket, and everybody complains about getting it. Whether you knew you parked in the wrong place legally or didn't legally do it, or parked in front of a fire hydrant, nobody likes to get a ticket. Nobody likes to be called out and have to pay for it. So I totally understand. But it's funny, Eric, that you brought up Chicago, because last week when they were going on with the riot in Chicago.
Oh, wait a minute, Diane, let me take this call. Hold on. Hello, caller.
Hey, have moved on, but to the question of whether or not they should get their records like sort of wipe clean after or expunged as a police officer for a while, it would be like saying should a guy who's been an officer who's had an exemplary career for, let's say, 10, 12 years be blamed for, still should we be looking at his rookie year and the things that he did as an initial police officer and holding that against him down the line? There comes doesn't he somewhat outgrow it?
Well, the question isn't whether, and yes,
I'm not saying I disagree, I just don't know.
But I think that
it's not the fact that disagree with it,
I think that yes, he might outgrow it, Farrakhan. But you want to be able to look. You want to be able to look in context at the person, right? So yeah, he may have in his rookie year face planted a perpetrator, right? But now he's 15 years into his career and doesn't have a blemish on his record, right? So you would look at all of that. So you say, yeah, he did that, but here's all the growth that this officer has had over the last 15 years.
The other thing that you have to look at is this. Because the union is so powerful, not only do they not look at their records, but they look at people with bad records, and the unions push that they get promoted. That's part of the part.
I do understand that they do something like that. So, I mean, it's a catch-22. I mean, I think that's like saying, should a person look at an individual, even should that go for just because it's their employment? Should that go for, should we expunge criminals' records who have 10, 20 years of being a productive citizen? I mean, or should we remember what they did in 1980? You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Well, see, let's look at it.
I'm 24 years released from incarceration, right, as of May 8th of this year. Okay, so telling me anything that I did prior to my incarceration, which would have meant, now we're talking damn near 30 years, right? So if you're going to say I'm not that person.
Right, but I wouldn't compare you. Right, but now what you're doing, and you're comparing you with a sworn law enforcement official, right? And I'm saying that they're held to a much higher standard than you are, and so and these guys have the power of life and death, and so I think that we need to give some additional consideration and not compare apples to oranges.
And Farrakhan, I have to commend you, on your record and how you have done 24 years of change and progression, and that's all a part of it. The officer in his rookie year may have done some bad things, but during the time period of his growth and development, he has changed to be an actually great officer. Just like, I've got a criminal record too, but it doesn't define who I am. It defines what I did, and it also gives a huge indication of my progress and growth and changing my life and learning from my mistakes. That's all that we're asking.
Yeah.
But when you erase the mistakes that an officer made, and for the simple fact that the union wants him to get promoted, or they want him to, once he gets fired, in 5 years, be 2 years to get another job as a police officer at another location, you now put the city at harm, or the people that are in charge at harm.
Now, I agree with you. You're dead right about that. You should not be getting fired for what you did on the job at one place and then be allowed to get hired somewhere else for the same type of job. So I do I agree with you on that one. I think that's sort of crazy. Jobs should be able to find out what your police performance was if you're going for another job as another officer.
So what were you going to say, Diane?
I think that's absolutely true. But again, that goes back to the laws. And while we're talking about it, that's the stuff that you need to be bullet pointing and saying, while you out there marching, this is what we want you to do. These are the laws we want you to change.
But here's what Cesare was saying earlier, right? So in the end, so here's what Cesare was saying.
Tell them what we need.
Here's what Cesare was saying in the beginning. He said, look, these are your mayors. These are your council people. They could be doing all of this stuff. They could have been. Look, they all hear all of the complaints from these, from their constituents within their, respective municipalities. They have failed to act. I want you to understand. I'm going to say that again. The fact that they're now doing something, so whatever it is that they're doing, this is the distraction, right? This is the flattery. This is I'm showing you that I love and care about you, so I'm going to pretend to do something. But what were they doing all of the time before this? Because all of those complaints existed, all of the things they knew about. And this is what I'm saying. So when they go down, and I find it to be abhorrent to see them all show up every year in Atlantic City at the League of Municipality. What the hell do they talk about? Do they not discuss this? Every year, every effing year. And then what do they do? Nothing. Now, I'll tell you this. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
They have sex capades, they cut deals down there, and they eat a lot.
Yes, that's it. But all of this stuff, all of this hard work stuff, they have no interest in. They have no interest in it, and they wish this would all just go away right now. Now, what you do have is you have some, what would I call them? Some folks who are trying to take advantage of the situation, right? And I see them crawling their slimy little asses from underneath the rocks that they live under, and trying to pretend as though they're some sort of civil rights advocate, and they're posting some stuff up there now, trying to catch the George Floyd wave, right, of emotion to again try to get you to believe that they give a damn about you. Be careful of all of them, because even those people, if they cared, they didn't have to wait till now. They could be railing against a number of issues that are proverbially have their knees on your necks. A bunch of issues, housing issues, education issues, underemployment issues. All of those represent the proverbial knee on your neck. And none of them are addressing any of those things in any specific way. None of them. They all have to go. They all have to go. They all are part of this nasty, vile, disgusting system. All of them. And so for you guys to now look at this one thing, and then Diane, and this is why when people say, well, we want to fight for justice for George Floyd, I'm going, well, what about justice for you? What about justice for you? Put your own mask on first before you try to save somebody else. That's my 2 cents. So what else? Because we got 9 minutes ago. Diane, have you gotten further in the book? Vincent, have you downloaded the book?
Not yet. I plan to do it this weekend.
All right.
Well, let's look at the generals and the Republicans are now backing away from Donald Trump or distancing themselves.
They should be distancing, but see, they should be distancing themselves from everybody who's failed. Everybody who's failed. Listen, so we say Donald Trump has failed for the last 3.5 years. You know how many elected officials have failed for the last 30 years? 40 years? Why aren't we backing away from them? Why isn't there this large talk about a mass exodus from those people? Why are we only talking about an exodus from this one guy? He is not the problem. It's bigger than that.
No, he's not the problem. He's the leadership, and he's the problem. And as we discussed earlier, Eric.
Are you wait?
No. Let me finish, Eric.
No, I'm not gonna,
from the head down.
Because I'm not gonna let you.
Leadership, we got failed everything else.
I'm not gonna let you get on your anti-Donald Trump soapbox again.
But I'm not gonna let you get on the Donald Trump isn't a bad guy.
No. I've never said he's not a bad guy. What I want.
I'm not saying anti-Donald Trump.
But what I
am saying, Eric, is this. Okay, I don't care who the president is. It's the leadership that's the issue.
No, listen. But what I want is this. Every time you come with your anti-Donald Trump stuff,
you're staticking.
Every time you come with your anti-Donald Trump stuff, right? I'm gonna rebuff it because I want to have the conversation about all those Democrats who had the fake kente cloth on taking a goddamn knee. I want to talk about them.
But we talk about, wait a minute, whoa, but we talk about those failed Democrats. And we talk.
What did you say about them today? What did you say? What came out of your mouth about them today?
What came out of my mouth was the platitude, the political platitude of them doing something now because of the event when they had the power to do it decades ago.
That's what I want to talk about.
Now we've already discussed that. Now let's look at the possibility of people walking away and realizing or coming to some public acknowledgement that this man is flawed. It is failed leadership, and people are no longer being subjective and staying in that abusive relationship. Fish rots from the head down, Eric. If our leader is screwed up, what happens to the rest of us?
Trump ain't did nothing. He only been there 3 years.
Thank you.
He only been there 3 years. So when he
see, the Queen can always bring it in. The Queen can always bring it in.
who you gonna complain about when Trump is gone?
I mean, I want you to understand this. We're putting this. Look, all of what I'm looking at all of America, right?
That's true. That is true. All of America.
You didn't hear what I was going to say. What am I going to say?
You're looking at all of America, okay? And all of America, in fact, all of us have a level of culpability in this present situation that we're in. Because in some way,
that's not what I was going to say, but go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Look ahead.
What I'm saying is I'm looking at America in its totality and what it's done for 400 years. You're taking a 3-year snapshot and you're saying that all of this is that guy's fault. And I'm saying to you, no, it's not. And as long as we continue to be hoodwinked to believe that, then we're never going to make any progress at all.
See, first, I'm not saying that all of it is that guy's fault. What I'm saying is all of it right now is in his lap.
No, it's not.
Well, okay.
No, it's not. Wait a minute. Are you going to say that what happens with the governor here in New Jersey and how it impacts us New Jerseyans, or what happens in Newark and what that mayor in Newark decides to do, or the mayor in East Orange decides to do, you're saying that's in Donald Trump's lap?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
But what I am saying, back to my original topic, is that
you think that a true Democrat?
Can I borrow from Kennedy?
Is that going to
ask not what your country can do for you, what you can do for your country? So it ain't on the president. See, Kennedy all the way back then was trying to get it off of him. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to use that same line and get it off of Trump and say it's on us. It's on us.
And I did say that earlier. I said all of America has some level of culpability. Did I not say that?
You think a Democrat is going to save the White House and going to save us?
No, it doesn't matter. Or it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican, Diane. What matters is that it's a politician or a leader who's looking to do what's the best interest of his country or the people he has sworn to serve.
What's the best interest for Black Americans?
What's the best interest of Black America? Okay, let's go into that. What we need to do now, because we should, as I said earlier, we should stop getting the flowers and the apology from this abusive
I'm just asking
relationship.
a very simple question. What is the best interest for America?
Let me get to it, Eric. Let me get to it. Okay, let me work it. All right? We should stop accepting what these people are giving us. And what Black America should do now is start demanding what we need. We should start demanding we should start demanding that these people tear down these racial barriers.
What is in the best interest of Black America?
I'm getting a lot of echo.
I'm sorry. My question is this. Well, what is the demand? What is the demand for something? Let me ask you this. What is the consequence of not going through with the demand?
Well, the consequence...
You can't demand something, right? You can't demand something. Say, I want you to do this, and then not have a consequence of what I'm going to do to you. But if you don't do it, and expect that you're going to do it.
Well, America is already...
Black Americans asking for demands. We're always asking for demands. We got demands all the time. But we don't have any consequence. Like I say, I've been saying it all week. How stupid is it to say, I'm at a totally peaceful protest yelling, no justice, no peace? See, that's how we think. We're going to say, no justice, no peace, but promise to have a peaceful protest. Correct. Tell me how that's going to work. That's wrong. It didn't work. And that's what I said. Hold on. It is. Because the civil rights movement had one thing. It had Martin Luther King, who said the peaceful protest of nonviolence, and you had Malcolm X and the Black Panther saying, no, if y'all ain't going with that, then we got something for you. And that's what we're looking at right now. We had Colin Kaepernick, who said, I'm going to peacefully take a knee. And now we've got everybody else jumping up and down and smashing stuff. So now that we have their attention, let's stop accepting what they give us, and let's now tear down these racial divides. Let's now put these policies into place and remove this systematic racism. We know all of what has been holding their foot or their knee on our necks. Now let's demand that they take it off. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, please say it, Raymond. So the book that we're going to be talking about in July 9th is When Affirmative Action Was Right by Ira Katz Nelson.
I'll be finished it this weekend.
I'll be reading as well.
And I will too.
I gotta get my copy. I'll get it this week.
Okay.
You said I can get it on audiobook?
Yeah, you can get it on audiobook. It's a couple bucks.
Yeah.
And I tell you, man, it's the greatest thing in the world, man. While you're driving, you can have it in your earbuds, you know.
Well, you know, that's how I get all the books. You know what I'm saying? Except for the first one. I even did that one. In the end, I got an audio copy of it. But I like that because while I'm riding, I'm listening. Yeah. And, you know, some days I got an hour plus ride in one direction. So when I'm
you can get
listening,
the whole book.
I'm listening and riding.
Absolutely.
So,
well, listen,
if
guys.
you want to do something on the weekend, you should be planning to be in Oklahoma and Tulsa. So when Trump goes over there, you block his ass so he can't get.
No. I yell for everybody. Don't do that. Black people, instead of wasting your time trying to picket against Donald Trump, like what you do is you go and do something to make your condition better. See, I was never taught that. And I won't go. I got so upset at people from the Nation of Islam. Right, on Facebook, talking about what we going to do about him going to Tulsa on Juneteenth. And I put nothing. That is not our job. I'm not worried about what Donald Trump is doing. I'm worried about what I'm not doing and the people that's with me.
You know what I'm going to do, Farrakhan? I'm going to make sure I do my mail-in ballot because I just got it in the mail today. And I'm voting out Donald Payne and I'm voting out Cory Booker.
Bam!
Now, that's what I'm doing.
Listen.
There you go.
Here now,
Diane, if I haven't said this to you before, I love you.
Here's what Will
Hathaway. I don't know if that's gonna work, bro.
Here's what Will Hathaway sent to me, and you know I'm gonna mention it, but Diane, I feel, and I know we're at 12 o'clock, so
that's okay.
This could be the end of it.
I'm sorry, but guys, have a great weekend. I've got another appointment that I got to run to.
All right, brother. You too.
All right. Be blessed, everyone. Be safe. God bless you. See you all Monday if it's God's will.
All right, man. Take care. So here's the Will Hathaway says Saturday at 1 Central and Scotland Road, there's going to be a rally in Orange. Here's my question about these rallies, right? Like, and I don't want to promote. Why isn't anybody talking about social distancing in the
You
rally?
know what? What time in Orange is it going to be? I may get my sign so I can go out there and say, vote out Cory Booker and vote out Donald
It's at
King.
1 o'clock. But
Change.
you understand what I'm getting at? So there was all this talk about social distancing, 6 feet apart, wear your masks, wear this, wear that. And now you look and you see all these rallies and protests where some people are wearing their masks, but some aren't. There certainly isn't 6 foot social distancing going on. But there's the encouragement to continue to have these rallies and these protests. And
Well-
isn't anybody afraid of the second wave?
Well, there are the people who are supporting, that are against vaccinations, and they're saying this is all a hoax from the beginning. So I don't know what's going on as to how it happened, and even how politicians are allowing, again, because they control the cities, allowing it to happen, stating that there was such an issue and people couldn't work. Now, if Donald Trump had any sense, he would say, see, you're out there protesting. I told you there was nothing wrong with you. All the businesses should open up, and then once the businesses open up and people go back to work, they ain't got time to protest.
Yeah,
Ain't
but
nobody
because
out
that's
there
what I'm looking
protesting.
at. I'm saying to myself, look at what's happening. They literally were running down. Cops were running down on people, right, who were gathered 3 or 4 people, right, during the height of this thing. And now you got hundreds, if not thousands, of people, and you've got elected officials who are promoting having more people come out to these things. And everybody's okay with it. I just want you to think on that. Anyway, have a great weekend, guys. I'm getting ready to go out and do some yard work.
Oh, I got something for you.
What
So,
you got?
how is your garden coming along?
Oh, Diane, it's coming along. Well, in about maybe about another 25 days or so, I guess I should start seeing tomatoes and things like that, right? You know, I
already start seeing the little green ones start to pop up.
Right. So I got 2 kinds of tomatoes. I've got yellow zucchini, I got green zucchini, I got onions, I've got potatoes, which I planted yesterday. I've got basil, I've got oregano.
Do you do any eggplant or any lettuces or anything?
No, but is it too late for me to do some eggplant?
No, I don't think it's too late.
Maybe
I did eggplant from. Did I do it from a seed? I can't remember.
Yeah, maybe I'll do some eggplant then.
Yeah, I did. I did eggplant from seeds. I'll show you my eggplant where they're at now. I put them out on May 22nd. I think that's the date because I marked it on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But look, if you have leaves that you can see where they're starting to look like bugs or insects are starting to bite them, or they're starting to like curl inside.
Right.
I have a remedy for that. Some peppermint oil. So if you get some peppermint, because I'm growing peppermint too, and mix it up and let it sit with some olive oil and then spray the leaves.
Ah, okay.
It doesn't harm the plant, makes it smell good outside, and it keeps the bugs and stuff from eating the leaves.
And you know what I'm thinking about doing, Diane? Because we keep talking about doing a show, right? Oh, and I forgot. There was something else I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about that bill. Remember I was saying that New Jersey's the only...
Oh, yeah, about the bill from cooking at home?
Yeah. They are now the group that was sponsoring it and pushing it, they're saying no, because the way that they're gutting this thing, it's actually going to do more harm. So they want to vote down on this bill now. But anyway, I'm thinking about renting out the commercial kitchen once harvest comes and showing our bounty, right? Showing everybody what we got, and then maybe figure out some meal or two that we can cook in the kitchen with it. I think that'd be pretty cool.
That sounds good. Eric Dixon said what happened to the COVID-19 task force in the daily briefings, and he said because the next sensational media agenda appeared come September, Corona and the protests will be no more than a distant memory. I said it too.
Hey, listen, we talked about it, right? And so now, but you know what, Diane, the media understood this, and they understand the short attention span of Americans, and for the liberal side of the media they realized, I told you, part of it is they wanted suffering. They wanted people to be unemployed. They wanted to be able to tout the high unemployment numbers. They wanted to be able to tout the, all of that kind of stuff to be able to point at Donald Trump. Conversely, yeah, Donald Trump's a screw up. But like Eddie Glaude said, he's easy. It's easy to have those conversations about him, right? Because we know, what are we going to do about it, right? So now by the time we get to November, they will be reporting some different kinds of numbers in terms of people going back to work, the economy, coming back online. And then there'll be a big pointing the finger, Republican, Democrat, about who is responsible ultimately for the pain and suffering, who shut down the economies in the different states, and it's all a mess. I'm saying I'm voting down ballot too. I'm voting to vote out Cory Booker, and obviously voting to vote out Donald M. Payne Jr. too.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see
Have
you
a great
Monday.
weekend.